A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is a show that has been like no other. And that is why I was very nervous going into this final episode, The Morrow, which is the finale, our last episode. Well, at least for this season. I mean, this show has already been renewed for season 2, and I'm sure it will follow probably the second novella. I know A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is the book, and I think it's all 3 of the novellas that we have so far in there. And then, of course, there is the potential, I think, that George R.R. Martin could write more of these novellas. They are shorter, so, I mean, maybe it's possible he might write more of these instead of finishing A Song of Ice and Fire. Honestly, it sounds more likely at this point, which I wouldn't be mad about, because while this show has been so good to this point, obviously, like many good stories, it kind of all rests in how it ends. And because we did the last episode with a fight, that was the fight episode, I was a little like, I mean, how could the denouement from the amazing fight that we had in episode 5 even compare to what we just had? And then I watched this episode, and I even had to change my mic color for this one. I had to change it to red in honor of the Targaryens, because I think we got into some real Targaryen trauma that I feel rarely do we unpack in this way. This was different. When it comes to the Targaryens, they have had so much trauma in their lives, and how does that shape them? And what does it mean when all of them kind of know? What if you have a family that inflicts trauma, but they also genuinely love each other because they're all kind of trauma bonded? Well, how does that change a dynamic? How does that, in a twisted way, almost strengthen dynamics between siblings? And I just like, how does royalty change your family dynamics as well? There are so many little things that this show goes into that I just feel like we never really think of the nuances of those moments between characters. This idea of both Dunk and Maekar being seen as the killers of Baelor when really neither of them wanted him dead. I don't think, as I said when I went back and looked at the blow in the last episode, I don't think that Baelor's brother wanted to kill him. I think that it was just something happened in the chaos of a fight without thinking about that. Because when you're in a fight, sometimes you're just not, there's so much going on. So that's very realistic to what could happen. And then, of course, Duncan being someone that looked up to Baelor, that really believed in Baelor. The part where he talks about how he considered, what if he was just willing to give up his foot and hand? What if? Would it have been a better choice? Is not the life of Baelor worth at least one of his feet or his hand? A part of him, a part of his body he was willing to give up. Or he considered. And I love how he comes to this conclusion of ultimately kind of coming to a place of sort of peace. I think it's going to be a journey for Duncan, but he does seem to come to this place of peace where he says, you know, but what if my hand or my foot down the line is going to serve the realm in a way that I just don't know? What if that is of equal value? What if that's of more value and that is why I am still here? Maybe there is some purpose for me. I don't know. This show is just so hopeful. And I think my major takeaway from this, and why I love this episode so much, why I think this episode actually stands apart from the other ones, even though it is not maybe as razzly-dazzly as some of the other episodes we've had this season, is because it really sums up what makes this show great. This idea of hope, this idea of coming to terms with who you are and your power in the world, choosing to be a force of good because you believe in it, believing in yourself and the potential of what you can do and how you can do good for the world, and believing in your own self-worth. I mean, My goodness, there's just so many things that this show is talking about right now that I feel are so weirdly culturally topical. And I mean, it is weird, but like I said, it's not weird because I think the best fantasy stories really do come from that place, right? They come from that place of understanding what's going on in the world and kind of using fantasy as a mirror to reflect it back to us. So the whole idea of where this has gone is summed up in this episode. And that also makes it a perfect finale in my mind because it speaks to the journey that we've been on. And then there's also this beautiful promise of what is to come. And there's still humor in it. There is still sorrow in this episode as well. Like Sir Lionel and Dunk at the beginning having that conversation, and the Maester's just basically like, Dunk's just gonna die, so like whatever, I guess. And Lionel's like, he doesn't know anything. Like, never mind. Come serve me. Like, that whole part was hilarious. The tragedy of Dunk as this person who blames himself for the death of Baelor and his journey through this episode to a place where he doesn't want to accept any job offers. He's losing the belief in what he's doing because he is now being forced to question the value of himself. And then him sort of looking at that and choosing himself because he believes in what he's doing. And in a beautiful way, that's kind of a great way to honor Baelor's memory, I think, because Sir Duncan is trying to be the man that Sir Baelor was looking for, right? He said he needed good men, and he wanted Duncan to serve for the Targaryens after that fight. And so, in spite of his own guilt, I feel like he's trying to live on in memory of Baelor, to be the person the realm needs. And that's why this story is so important in the mythos and in the lore of the world. That's why this is a legend. And it is the power of legends to do things like evoke change. And I feel like all of that is beautifully summed up in this episode. Before I say adieu, I need to just say that this episode is also made insanely well. And a huge part of that is, of course, our cast. And I just have to again say Peter Claffey is an absolute master in this show. It is crazy the emotions and the shifts that he can move through as a performer, from this place of like very real drama to this humor, this show makes me like cry and laugh on a dime, and so much of that is Peter Claffey's performance. And the music in this episode was absolutely killer. And I mean, we'll talk about the music for the whole show. I'm going to do a whole season review because there are some things I want to talk about that I'm holding myself back from saying here, because the show makes, like, now that it's done, I just can't stop thinking about all of the places we've been and all of the stuff that I'm excited about for it as a whole piece. But overall, this episode itself was amazing. And my full season review will be out in a couple days if you want to hear my thoughts on everything. But I loved this episode. I honestly think every episode is better than the last in this show. And if you're not watching this show, please go watch this show. Seriously, I think it has the potential to become another cultural touchstone like we saw with Game of Thrones. And if you want to know why I think that, make sure you check out my full season review. I'll see you guys in the next video. And until next time, friends, as always, stay nerdy. Bye. And if you missed my previous episode review, you can check that out over here.